Shalom. Shalom, brothers and sisters. Let's test the sound. Make sure the sound is good. If the sound is good, press the number 1. If there's an issue with the sound, let me know what it is before we get started. Okay, starting to see a lot of ones coming in. So it looks like the sound is good. So let me go ahead and call in the Blog Talk, and if there's any issue at any time with the sound or the video or anything, let me know in the chat and I'll address it should there be an issue, but hopefully there'll be no problems.
Welcome to Blogtalk Radio. Please enter your host PIN. When finished, press the pound key. I'm sorry, but I did not...
The PIN you entered does not match the PIN you have on file for your account. Please re-enter your PIN.
Thank you for using Blogtalk Radio. Goodbye.
Gotta love technology.
Welcome to Blogtalk Radio. Please enter your host PIN. When finished, press the pound key.
Here important.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Blogtalk Radio.
So the Most High is going to stop the flowing of the people going into that country. Read.
Jeremiah chapter 51, the end of verse 44. Yea, the wall of Babylon shall fall. Verse 45. My people, go ye out of the midst.
Hold up, read that again.
My people, go ye out of the midst.
I think within this chapter, he said flee and get out of her around 3-4 times. Right? Read.
My people, go ye out of the midst of her, and deliver ye every man his soul from the fierce anger of the Most High Ahijah. And let your heart faint, and ye fear for the rumor that shall be heard in the land. A rumor shall both come 1 year, and after that in another year shall come a rumor. And
wars and rumors of wars. You hearing about it, and because it's not happening, you think it's not going to happen. Read.
Verse 46, end of verse 46. And violence in the land, ruler against ruler. Verse 47. Therefore, behold, the days come that I will do judgment upon the graven images of Babylon, and her whole land shall be confounded, and all her slain shall fall in the midst of her. Then the heaven and the earth, and all that is therein, shall sing for Babylon, for the spoiler shall come unto her from the north, saith the Most High Ahijah. As Babylon hath caused the slain of Israel to fall, so as Babylon shall fall the slain of all the earth. Ye that have escaped the sword, go away, stand not still. Remember the Most High Ahijah afar off, and let Jerusalem come into your mind.
Listen to this clear. Ye that have escaped the sword, that means you escape the destruction that's coming to Babylon, go away and stand not still. So when you leave, remember the power or the gods are higher or far off. And let Jerusalem come into your mind. That's looking forward, not looking back. Now let Jerusalem come into your mind. She's finished. Right? Read.
Verse 51. We are confounded, because we have heard reproach. Shame has covered our faces. For strangers are coming to the sanctuary of the Lord's house.
Strangers have destroyed us. Strangers have destroyed our sanctuary, our belief. They destroyed our understanding so that we cannot connect to our God. They've given us their gods. Baal, Satan, the dragon, Moloch. These are the gods we've been worshiping ignorantly. Jesus, Zeus. Okay, we ain't know nobody named Jesus. Total madness. And then when we wake up and understand these things, we say, well, hold up. I'm a stranger here. You dragged me here. And the Most High starts reviving us. They be like, okay, we have one of these extremists. You're a terrorist. Read on.
Jeremiah chapter 51, verse 52. Wherefore, behold, the days come, saith the Most High Ahijah, that I will do judgment upon her graven images.
He's going to destroy all your images and your idols. And man, if you even look at Washington, D.C., it's idol after idol, monuments of idols, obelisks, which is man's personal member. That's what an obelisk is. What's that, the Washington Monument? God was dead. That's what you are. Okay, his program was before us, and it will be well after us. And that's for the people that's walking out there. There's wars all the time. There've always been these situations. Every few years this happens. Nothing is going to change. That's a dead man.
Shabbat Shalom, Barakatham, Watawada. Peaceful Sabbath, bless you all, and thank you for tuning in to another broadcast of Friday Night Sabbath coming out of Babylon, here with the Gathering of Christ Church, where we connect the dots of our reality and current events with the Word of God and Bible prophecy. It is 7:12 p.m. Central Standard Time, August 6, 2021. And let me just make sure real quick. I saw some things in the chat. Somebody said that they were getting some feedback. Also getting some things here on my screen. YouTube error on the connection. So just want to make sure everything is good before I proceed and before we get started. So if anybody is getting any feedback, please let me know. If not, then we can go ahead and get started with going through some of the announcements. Okay, a couple people saying everything is clear. Just want to make sure we understand the principalities that are at work and working right now. So we're going to continue to fight through the different challenges that come our way from the adversary, but hope everyone, all of you out there are doing well this evening. You've had a blessed week, blessed day today, and that your Sabbath is blessed as well as we're going into the weekly Sabbath. Want to give all praises to the Most High, Ahijah, in the name of His Son Christ, Yeshua, and the Ruach, which is the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit in the Hebrew, for being able to enjoy another weekly Sabbath, as well as be here before you for another broadcast with everything that is up against us in this hour when it comes to being here to be able to put forth information in this time where information is greatly being suppressed. Okay. So hope all of you are doing well. And before we go into the church announcements, just want to make sure everyone understands the different ways you can follow and listen to this broadcast. Of course, we're streaming live on YouTube. You can go to GOCC Southwest. You can either do a search in your YouTube search box, or you can actually type in youtube.com/GOCC Southwest. Should take you straight to this channel where you can click on the live stream to watch this broadcast. Also, we're doing a multicast as we are streaming from Blogtalk Radio as well. And the guest call-in number for Blogtalk Radio is, let me get that. Let me get that number for you all. The guest calling number is 515-605-9327. 515-605-9327. If you would like to speak, you have a question, a comment, anything you would like to share that would go good with this broadcast, or maybe just something else that you think is interesting, please call in. Press the number 1 once you call in, and that will put you in the queue, and we will go to the call lines periodically throughout the broadcast to check in to see if anybody would like to speak as we go through this information. All right, before we go into the announcements tonight, let me go ahead and get today's title for the broadcast. The name of tonight's broadcast is Cyber Polygon, Cyber Terrorism, the Next Invisible Boogeyman, REDUX. Cyber Polygon, Cyber Terrorism, the Next Invisible Boogeyman, REDUX. All right, so for those of you who tuned in last broadcast 2 weeks ago, you'll probably be familiar with the title as well as some of the content that we covered during that broadcast. But we're gonna continue to build on this topic as there's more information that we can definitely cover when it comes to this. More information that's happened since the last broadcast that actually goes hand in hand with this particular subject matter. So we'll go into all of that and more as far as breaking down the broadcast for tonight and everything that we're going to be speaking on. Okay, as most of you know that listen, I'm sure you've either attended or are very aware of the Hebrew and Bible Academy. We are actually in week 3 coming up, so if you would like to attend, you would like to join the Hebrew and Bible Academy, it's still not too late. Go to historytimes.org where you can listen in to and follow and be a part of the Hebrew and Bible Academy. All right, where the elders are going into real-time news information. Elder Lawyer's doing the Hebrew in the morning, early in the morning, and then the lesson with Elder Ricard, Elder Lawyer, and then of course before that you have the news with Shabbat, Elder Shabbat. So definitely get in if you would like to join, and you don't want to miss it. The times we're in, you never know, it could be the last one. So don't miss out on that information. We also have other channels that are broadcasting great content right now for the Gathering of Christ Church. We also have Elder Gabar and some of the leaders on the East Coast, the New York area. I Am Fit podcast. I Am Fit podcast. You can go to that. Just search I Am Fit podcast on YouTube, and you should see the broadcast that the Elder Gabar and some of the other leaders are hosting right now. This past broadcast was definitely a very timely broadcast. A lot of good wisdom and information coming out, mainly dealing with men and things that men are dealing with in this current day and age, with everything that's been pitted against men, mainly speaking about the men of color, but all men. The rise of feminism, the effeminization of men, all these things that, a man finding his purpose in this life. As you can see, I have my 2021 Men's Assembly t-shirt on, where we actually had a men's day here in Dallas with the church, building the brotherhood, building up the men, the next and current leaders of our nation. If there's no strong men to lead a nation, then that nation pretty much doesn't exist. All right. So, and even though the broadcast was men-centered on the I Am podcast, sisters, definitely check it out as well. There's a lot of great information there that's even helpful and beneficial to sisters, because a lot of it was dealing with sisters and the different challenges that men have when it comes to finding a wife and avoiding the pitfalls and snares that can come with having a wife and having a family and going through the courtship process, all those things, what a woman should be looking for when it comes to a man, what a man should be looking for when it comes to a woman, and where they should be at mentally, spiritually, all those things prior to going into marriage. So there's a lot of good content there that is greatly beneficial, and it's these type of discussions that are very much needed. They've been very popular here lately, as you've had a lot of a rise of a lot of podcasts dealing with men issues. So the church has I Am Fit podcast, and Elder Kabar is going to be doing a lot when it comes to men going God's way. Okay. So right now, of course, we're streaming. Go ahead and hit the like button. Go to your social medias, your Facebooks, your Twitters, email, text messaging, any way that you have that you're able to share this information. Go ahead and blast that out. Let everyone know we're streaming live now, Friday night, for those who on Friday nights are looking for something holy to be a part of, as well as get some insight and information real time as far as current events, news, and Bible prophecy, so that you don't get caught up in the distractions that come on a Friday night, those things that would look to have you defiling the weekly holy day and engaging in all type of things dealing with the world. All right. So that's it for the church announcements. And before we go into tonight's information, I just wanted to share something with you, brothers and sisters. Last broadcast 2 weeks ago was the first broadcast that we've done on Friday night in about 4 months. And it was the first broadcast that we've done live here in over 7 months on YouTube, because we have been doing a lot of broadcasting on Twitch. For those who know, we originally had GOCC Texas. GOCC Texas was terminated with 0 strikes. GOCC Texas had never ever had a strike in the existence of the channel, and then YouTube just up and terminated the channel behind the accusation of commercially deceptive content, whatever that means. And the broadcast that we had did that actually led to the termination of GOCC Texas was the Trump spell, the presidential distraction, and Americans' hope in Babylon. Okay. And then we came over here to GOCC Southwest, started building this channel. And the persecution came on this channel as well, where we had 2 strikes. In a matter of, a month or two, we already had picked up 2 strikes. So then we decided to go ahead and look to segue over to Twitch, where we were doing a lot of broadcasting on Twitch, taking those Twitch episodes and uploading them to Odyssey.com, the GOCC Southwest Odyssey account, for backup. And so last week, or the last broadcast 2 weeks ago, was the first time we had been here on YouTube on the GOCC Southwest in a pretty good while. And the channel had been real quiet. You know, there hadn't been any activity going on with the channel, of course. We're not doing any broadcasting. YouTube had stopped removing videos, all of that. Okay, so let me fast forward to last broadcast. So, of course, the broadcast we did last was Cyber Polygon, Cyber Terrorism, the next invisible boogeyman. And after the broadcast, you know, felt good that we were 3 in the morning. It was about 3 in the morning, Friday night, Saturday morning, when I get an email to my phone, and it says, let me pull it up here so y'all can see it. I got an email to my phone, and it was from YouTube. So of course, in my mind, the first thing I'm thinking is, you know, email I got says, give me one moment. Actually, give me one moment, brothers and sisters. Just got disconnected from Blogtalk. Connection is not good today. 1 second. One second. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pause that.
Welcome to Blogtalk Radio. Please enter your host PIN. When finished, press the pound key.
To start your show now, press 1.
Since it appears
Give me one moment. Okay, so made some adjustments. Hopefully won't have any issues going forward. All right, so let's make sure everything is good now before I get back on track. We understand the principalities that are at work when it comes to things concerning righteous works. So, but I think we should be good now. So let me pick back up where I left off. So it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and I get a text message from YouTube. Actually, an email, excuse me. And so, of course, on my phone, I didn't open up the notification. I just saw the headlines. And it said, hi, GOCC Southwest. We wanted to let you know our team reviewed your content and we think it violates our medical misinformation policy. We know you may not have realized this was a violation of our policies, so we're not applying a strike to your channel. So when I seen this on my notifications, this is pretty much where it cut off. So I'm like, okay, they removed the broadcast we just did, right? Only makes sense. The channel's been quiet all this time, no action going on. We do a broadcast, a few hours later, it got taken down. I'm like, wow, like we weren't even talking about things medical, and they took it down. So the next morning, I woke up and I saw a lot of comments coming in, and I'm thinking to myself, why are comments still coming in on the video if it was taken down? So I went to the email to look to see, okay, what's going on? So when I came to the email, it says, however, we have removed the following content from YouTube. And the video they removed was vaccinations passports and the smart mark. Okay. The vaccination passports and the smart mark. Now, we've seen this before. Okay, this is what led us to go over to Twitch. It says what our policy says. YouTube doesn't allow claims about DAVIC 91 that contradict expert consensus from local health authorities or the, I'm just going to say everything backwards, OHW. Okay. Now, there's a couple of things I want to point out when it comes to the, you know, what's going on right now with all of this. Okay, let me switch back, make sure that the streaming is still good. So there's a couple of things I want to point out. All right, so this video they removed wasn't the one we did last week. This was a video that had been uploaded almost a year ago. All right, it was a live stream we did. It was probably a year old. Now, mind you, the channel hadn't had any activity going on for over 7 months. That was the last time we broadcasted here. No videos were removed. Nothing happened in that 7-month period. But no sooner than we do a broadcast, you mean to tell me all of a sudden now a video that's almost a year old gets removed? Now, here's the parallel. I'm going to show you, brothers and sisters, some parallels here. The parallel is this was the first broadcast where we showed the smart mark. And we showed that particular clip, that cartoon, where it talked about the smart mark. And then, fast forward to 2 weeks ago, this was the second time where we showed the smart mark. So I find it very interesting. I'm not going to use the word coincidental, because I don't believe in coincidences. I find it very interesting that we showed the smart mark last week, that exact same clip, and the very first broadcast where we showed that was the one that was removed a few hours after we broadcasted to this channel for the first time in over 7 months. So, you know, I say all that to say this, brothers and sisters. It's a reason why we speak in code here on YouTube. Because the demonic AI bots are like parasites and vultures looking for a weak spot. Right? They're looking for a spot where they can attack. And not just here on YouTube. Right? This goes into the principalities we read. Ephesians chapter 6. We wrestle not against flesh and blood. Right? The invisible powers that are at work here. Right? These are not people. This is a spirit. Right? This is a artificial intelligence algorithm that's operating, and you have to ask yourself what power, what energy is behind these algorithms, these artificial intelligences that will go in and almost like they're looking for something. Like, okay, they see this channel's broadcasting, now let's go in and look to see if, you know, we can hit it and attack anywhere. Oh, we can't attack this video, let's move on to another one. Oh, the smart mark, we couldn't get, you know, this video because the smart mark was in this one, but we'll go get the smart mark that was in the other one. So when you hear us say things like Jim Jones Juice, Davik 91, which is the phrase that, you know, the elder has put out there, it's to get around these algorithms and this demonic AI energy that's circling around, looking for a opportunity to attack, strike, and take down. And that's what lets you, brothers and sisters, know that this has got to be the truth. This information has got to be the truth, to where you can't even have an alternative viewpoint. Even as a doctor, like, you could be a practicing doctor, 20, 30, 40, 50 years practice, and have an alternative viewpoint from the OHW, Organization Health World, backwards. You can't even have an alternative position with facts and information than what they're putting out. And we know that doctors all the time don't have the same conclusions and come to the same, ideologies when it comes to, treatments and all those type of things, right? There's not really, you can say, two doctors that see things exactly the same. So there's going to be some difference, but you can't say anything different from them. Mind you, what they say changes every day. One day it's you got to do this. The next day it's you got to do that. One day is if you get this, you won't catch that. And then the next day, well, yeah, if you take this, then yeah, you can still catch that. Right? Well, we have stayed consistent from the very beginning, and we've never changed off of what we've said. See, that's the thing about a lie. When you tell a lie, right, it's hard to keep that lie going. You're always going to be, frantically scrambling around trying to cover that lie. And then you get caught up in the lie. Then you're stuttering. You're trying to say, okay, well, this is what it is now. Or this is what it is, This is how you're able to identify who are the liars here. Who are the true ones with the misinformation? Who are the forgers of lies and physicians of no value, as the book of Job 13:4 tells us? Right? These are clear signs. So I wanted to point that and show that out, that, read between the lines. There are things that are said that, if you can use a little bit of common sense, understand what we're talking about when we use certain words or terminology, is to protect these broadcasts, protect these channels, so that these demonic AI algorithms don't take us down, because they're looking for blood. All right, that just goes to show you how close they're operating, how closely they're on us, to where you don't have much wiggle room. Right? The path to the kingdom is straight and narrow. So you get off the path left or right, here come the vultures in to take you down. The eagles from the unseen to attack. Okay, so this is more to show, brothers and sisters, you have to be on point in these end times. And again, please bear with me if I'm looking for the right words to use to describe certain things, so that I don't say the wrong thing that could actually cause a demonic algorithm to come all up in here and wreak havoc. All right. The next thing I want to talk about before we go into tonight's information is, last broadcast I talked about AT&T and the text message I got on my phone, where they stated that if I don't call to customer service in a couple of days, they are going to interrupt my service and send me to customer service to talk about upgrading my phone, because they're saying my phone is 3G and 3G is going away February 2022. They need to interrupt my service now. And that was July, right? Talking about 8 months before 3G even goes away. They want to intercept my calls and speak to me about my phone. So, of course, last week, they interrupted my service. I couldn't make calls. I couldn't make calls. And so I called customer service, right? I called customer service, and this is what I want you to listen to what they told me. They said, well, as you know, you have a 3G phone. 3G is going away. And we want to send you a new phone. And it's free. So I'm thinking to myself, a new phone and it's free. Because, phones aren't cheap. Especially these newer phones. And I'm like, well, what's the catch? And I'm already understanding and knowing what's going on. But I'm playing the little game. I said, well, what's the catch? What strings are attached? Is there an agreement that comes with this? Like, oh no, there's no agreement. Because you've been such a loyal customer, we're going to go ahead and send you a new phone. Mind you, I've only been with AT&T 2 years. Not like I've been with them 10 years. Only been with them 2 years. You've been a good customer. And, well, you may not actually need the phone, but just in case you do, because, your phone still may work come February 2022. So they're going to send me a free phone on projection, on the projected forecast that my phone may or may not work. So I'm like, wow. Just like that, a free phone. So you'll have a backup phone just in case. So, this was like Thursday, late afternoon. And then I end up getting the phone like Friday, early afternoon, late morning. I'm like, that's less than 24 hours. Overnight shipping isn't cheap either. So, and just for those that don't believe me, or just so I can show, here's the phone, right? Here's the phone they sent me. All right, so these are the phones they're sending out. Now, for this next generation of cellular technology, to make sure that you have this technology in your hand. This is the first time I've ever seen this happen before. Right? I never got a free phone that didn't come without some type of catch, an agreement, something. But I noticed the timing of something. Again, I like to draw parallels. So the other parallel I drew was, okay, here it is. At the same time that Biden and governors and mayors of New York are all coming out saying that it's mandatory, you got to get the Jim Jones juice, you got to take this, or you're going to get fired from your job, you're going to have to take testing every week if you don't get the juice. At the same time that they're pushing that, I'm telling you, to the exact day, they're pushing the 5th generation phone that's also free. Not only is the Jim Jones juice free, but these devices, which I would say on average, most phones $200 or $300. Who's paying for all this? Who's paying for the free phone? Who's paying for the Jim Jones juice? This stuff can't be cheap. Right? So I'm like, they're not even trying to make this discreet at all. Like, how much more obvious could they make it at the same time that they're pushing these things on us? It's happening at the exact same time, the exact same to the day. And so then I'm on the phone with the rep, and he's like, yeah, let me go ahead and clear the block off your phone so you can make calls now. So they had a block on my phone where I couldn't make calls. Mind you, I got meetings, councils, and things I need to do. So they interrupted my whole way of life to force me to have a free phone that I may or may not need, and it's not until February of next year. So you're just trying to figure out, what is this push and this rush to rush this certain direction towards this type of technology, and to have this juice up in our veins. What's the rush? But for those that listen to this church and these broadcasts and others that are out there blowing the horn, blowing the trumpet, you already know how this is so deeply connected. And they're just more or less showing you how deeply this is connected. Okay, so I thought I would share that with you, my own personal account of what's going on. And if you didn't have any confirmation that how deeply connected those two particular dynamics are, the Jim Jones juice and the next generation of cellular technology are, then hey, there's another account to add to the list, the long list of coincidences. Okay, so moving on from that, because we got a jam-packed show tonight with information. I want to make sure I'm able to get through it all, get to the call lines as well, because we probably have some time at the end for calls for those who would like to speak. Let me go ahead and get to the information, and let's go ahead and dive all the way into tonight's broadcast. So, again, the name of tonight's broadcast is Cyber Polygon, Cyber Terrorism, the Next Invisible Boogeyman, Redux, right? This is part 2, or the redo. Building on what we went through last week, dealing with this new age of digital warfare. And does all of this connect to World War III? All right, we're going to get all of that and more in tonight's broadcast as well. Speaking about the invisible, before we came back 2 weeks ago, the broadcast that we had did was Project MK Ultra, trauma-based mind control, psychological weaponry of the beast. So all of this is connecting to a lot of things that we've gone over in different broadcasts in the past. It's all building. The trauma or fear-based mind control that's being used on the mind to incite panic, hysteria, confusion, chaos in one's life that would cause you to feel pressured to running a direction that's a cliff when there's no need to run that way. This is part of their weaponry. So a lot of stuff that we're seeing right now, mainly in the mainstream media, is their warfare, is their weaponry that they're using to induce trauma on people. Pressure busts a pipe. Okay? When pressure gets going, pipes get to busting. And that's what we're seeing happening. And this is what they're looking to do, is put the pressure on, see who's going to bust or crack under pressure. Okay. But before we go there, I want to read some scriptures and talk a little bit about this warfare in the end times. What does the scriptures tell us about this war in the end times? Let me pull up my e-sword here. One moment. So here's my e-sword. Let me pull it up. I'm in 2nd Esdras chapter 16. Okay, and I'm at verse 1. And it reads, "Woe be unto thee, Babylon and Asia. Woe be unto thee, Egypt and Syria. Gird up yourselves with cloths of sack and hair. Bewail your children and be sorry, for your destruction is at hand. A sword is sent upon you, and who may turn it back? Okay, and for those of you who don't understand and know, we think of a sword, we think of like a physical sword or maybe a gun. But an injection or a shot or the Jim Jones juice, that's a sword. Okay? You have something metal that's breaking the skin, and it has metallic components inside of it going into the body. Okay? That's a sword. A sword is sent upon you, and who may turn it back? A fire is sent among you, and who may quench it? Plagues are sent unto you, and what is he that he may drive them away? May any man drive away a hungry lion in the wood? Or may anyone quench the fire in stubble when it hath began to burn? May one turn again the arrow that is shot of a strong archer? The mighty Lord sendeth the plagues, and who is he that can drive them away? A fire shall go forth from his wrath, and who is he that may quench it? He shall cast lightnings, and who shall not fear? He shall thunder, and who shall not be afraid? So all these are questions that Ezra is asking. And these are questions we should ask ourselves. And these are questions that people of the world should be asking right now. But is anyone asking these questions? Is anyone in fear of the Lord and these things that he's doing? These signs that he's showing in the earth right now? It says here, the Lord shall threaten, and who shall not be utterly beaten to powder at his presence? The earth quaketh, and the foundations thereof. The sea ariseth up with waves from the deep, and the waves of it are troubled, and the fishes thereof also, before the Lord and before the glory of his power. For strong is the right hand that bendeth the bow. His arrows that he shooteth are sharp, and shall not miss when they begin to be shot into the ends of the world. Okay, so his arrows are now beginning to be shot. All the different plagues that are and the things that are starting to begin to happen in the earth. Edris is going to break down what some of these things are. It says, behold, the plagues are sent, and shall not return again until they come upon the earth. The fire is kindled, and shall not be put out till they consume the foundation of the earth. So until the fire, which we know Christ said that his second baptism will be a baptism of fire, until that fire has kindled and consumed the whole foundation of the earth, understand that the reality we're going into isn't going to get better. For all those people thinking, well, if I just go get the juice, I can go back to my old life. Or the world, we can get back to the old normal. There is no old normal. The old world order is over. Okay? And it's going to take a fire to purge and cleanse the whole earth from all the evil and wickedness that's going on and happening. And it's been happening to this earth. All right? And before this fire comes, understand that the evil will have their way in this earth to unprecedented levels. Levels that they're just now getting started, getting their game started. Verse 16, like as an arrow which is shot of a mighty archer returneth not backward, even so the plagues that shall be sent upon earth shall not return again. Woe is me, woe is me. Who will deliver me in those days? Again, another question. So are people asking who will deliver them in these days? Or are they asking, when am I going to get my old life back? When are things going to go back to normal? Right? Look at the world. Right? Look at our current reality. Look at what people are doing. People are operating and acting like This world isn't in a total teetering moment of collapse, right? The world is acting like, nothing's really going on because they would rather stick their head in the ground and act like nothing's going on. All right. Verse 18, the beginning of sorrows and great mournings, the beginning of famine and great death, the beginning of wars, and the powers shall stand in fear, the beginning of evils. What shall I do when these evils shall come? Now check this out. Right? When I was studying this, I was thinking about this. You're looking at Ezra seeing the end. So why does he say the beginning of wars when we know that war has existed since the beginning of creation of man? Mankind has been always at war since the beginning of time. Right? The beginning of different kind of wars, newer wars, like your war on terror, your war on drugs, the war on Davik 91, okay? The war on cyber terrorists, all these new wars, and world war. See, in the past, typically when you talk about war, you're talking about one country versus another country. But what happens when all the countries in the world are at war? See, that's a different type of war. Okay, so we're going to talk about this different type of warfare that's going on right now. Okay, because during Ezra's time, there was no digital warfare. There was spiritual warfare. There was psychological warfare. Okay. There was even biological warfare, but not to the level of what it is now. Germ warfare. All right, these new wars that are springing up. And notice how all of these wars in modern time, they always end with people of color at the end of their sights. Have y'all noticed that? The war on drugs, the war on Davik 91, okay? The war on terror, all these wars always end up with, just so happen, people of color are the ones in the crosshairs. Verse 19, behold, famine and plague, tribulation and anguish are sent as scourges for amendment. Now let's take a look at this word amendment. Okay. I want to talk about this word amendment here. This is on dictionary.com.
Amendment.
It says here, a change made by correction, addition, or deletion. So we're talking about a change here. It says all these things, they shall not turn, verse 19, behold, famine and plague, tribulation and anguish are sent as scourges for amendment. So these signs, these plagues, are sent for what? A change made by correction, addition, or deletion. And when you continue to read down in the 2nd Ezra 16, you see it's talking about sin. All right. So all these signs, you would think the world would see what's going on and they would say, I need to get myself right with the almighty power. I need to change my ways and my way of life and how I'm living because it's evil. There's a correction that needs to be made. Right? And there's an addition that needs to be made. I need to add the law, statutes, and commandments to my life. I need to add baptism to my life. A deletion needs to be made. I need to delete sin, unrighteousness, wickedness, evil out of my life. All these things are being done to get people's attention to understand that something in the world isn't right. When you go down, some other words related to amendment, you have modification, revision, repair, alteration, improvement, reformation, enhancement, and betterment. So when it's all said and done, people can't say they weren't warned or shown that stuff that's going on in this world, no matter what reality you want to try to live into or whatever distraction you want to be distracted by, you can't say that you weren't shown and warned, because the whole earth is seeing these signs. There's no way you can escape not seeing something's going on. But it's the delusion of mankind that light is coming to the world, and that men love darkness more than they love the light. Because verse 20 is going to tell us. It says, "But for all these things they shall not turn from their wickedness, nor be always mindful of the scourges." So people aren't aware, or even in their mind thinking, we just had a lockdown last year, and now they're talking about another lockdown. When are you going to repent and understand what time it is? Okay, you're only thinking about the lockdown last year because they're talking about another lockdown this year. But before that, you were having a hot girl summer or a hot boy summer. You wasn't worried about no lockdown. You wasn't worried about the upcoming famines and plagues that are coming. You were too busy trying to get it how you live. Verse 21, "Behold, victuals shall be so good cheap upon earth, that they shall think themselves to be in good case." So because you can go out and go, buy new, whatever it is, Chinese junk, TVs, cell phones, computers, cars, whatever it is that you can go out and buy, because you can get all this stuff real easy. You think that the world is in a good place. Even despite the lockdown that happened last year, I'm able to travel. I can go here, I can go there. Look, they're building new homes over here. They're building, look, football season's coming back, right? We're getting back to the old normal. But what does Ezra tell us? "And even then shall evils grow upon earth, sword, famine, and great confusion." So in the midst of the delusion and them promising people, if you just drink the juice, we'll go back to normal. We can get things back to normal. You can have your old life back. As people are growing stronger in that delusion, what's happening to the earth? Evils are growing, meaning more sin is happening. I mean, it's outrageous to the point to where, I can't go anywhere on the internet without seeing, one of our sisters twerking somewhere. You got sisters twerking at a restaurant, and the restaurant owner's trying to tell them to stop, and they're, getting into a fight at the restaurant because they don't want to stop twerking at someone else's place of business and establishment. It was a while back, you had sisters twerking all over a police car. And then just this week, I seen sisters doing lap dances at a funeral. So in the midst of the apocalypse and the Most High showing the world all these signs of it's time to repent before the destruction comes, the people get more evil. They turn up the hot girl, hot boy summer volume. Right? The lever, they turn it all the way up past max. Okay, it's maxing out here. Let me see if I can take this knob off and, go into overdrive past the highest number on the knob. You know what I'm saying? So evils are growing. swords. Talked about the Jim Jones juice. More and more. Oh, you took 2? Well, guess what? If 2's not enough, because you can still catch the disease even after 2. So you're going to need more shots, more swords, because you can still catch it. And you might be able to be contagious as well. What about the famine that's going on? When you go to the store, your shelves are not what they used to look like as far as stocking. There's empty spots on the shelves. You go and try to purchase an appliance or this item or that item, it's out of stock. That's a famine. That's a sign. And great confusion. That great confusion is also spoken of in 2nd Baruch when he talks about the stupor. Wherever you go in this world, or you're trying to do business or trying to get something done, it's always a bunch of confusion trying to get just the smallest, simplest thing done. People don't know their head from a hole in the ground. All right? You can't even have just a regular conversation anymore with people without them dealing with just a high level of stupor and confusion. Okay, but this really, what this is setting the stage for is the final war. These are battles, but the ultimate war is on the horizon, which the beginning of that is what, secular history has, talked about for decades now, World War III. World War III. So how does tonight's broadcast, when we talk about cyber polygon, cyber terrorism, the next invisible boogeyman, REDUX, how does all this now tie into World War III? We're gonna show that tonight. Be the Most High's will. Hopefully you brothers and sisters can connect these dots as we go through it. But let me show a video here. All right. Well, before I show a video, I want to go to Wikipedia. Wikipedia. And I'm going to psychological operations. We talked about the trauma-based mind control. Right? The fear-based, trauma-based mind control, psychological weaponry of the beast. So let's talk about the psychological operations. It says psychological operations, or PSYOP, are operations to convey selected information and indicators to audiences to influence their emotions, motives, and objective reasoning, and ultimately the behavior of governments, organizations, groups, and individuals. So a psychological operation, or a PSYOP, objective is to influence your emotions and your motives, as well as your objective reasoning, your ability to think cognitively. Okay, so if they can break your cognitive ability to reason, you therefore have a disconnect cognitively, which is referred to as cognitive dissonance. Right, the cognitive dissonance It says the purpose of United States psychological operations is to induce or reinforce behavior favorable to U.S. objectives. So the United States has psychological operations, which we can just in layman's term refer to as psychological warfare. United States agenda or agendas. They are an important part of the range of diplomatic, informational, military. What is military? Military is in warfare. And economic activities available to the U.S. They can be utilized during both peacetime and conflict. So even when you're not in a direct conflict or war, and it's what you would consider peacetime, when they shall say peace and safety, then comes sudden destruction. So you're being bombarded with psychological warfare and operations on your mind, even when you think everything's normal and fine. That's when you're at your most acceptable point. That's when you're at your point of, at least suspecting to have war waged on you. Right? Because during an actual armed conflict, if it's one country at war with another, you're on your guard. You know we're at war. There's a different spirit versus when everything's, you're not at war with anybody. You're at peace. Well, that's when the devil's going to attack you and bombard you psychologically the most. It says there are three main types: strategic, operational, and tactical. It says PSYOP include informational activities conducted by the U.S. government agencies outside of the military arena though many utilize Department of Defense assets. So what's the Department of Defense? Military. So even though they'll say, well, this strategic PSYOP isn't military at work, but yet they're utilizing a arm of the military in the Department of Defense with what they're doing. So that's still military. Operational PSYOP are conducted across the range of military operations, including during peacetime in a defined operational area to promote the effectiveness of the Joint Force Commanders' campaigns and strategies. Tactical PSYOP are conducted in the area assigned to a tactical commander across the range of military operations to support the tactical mission against opposing forces. So one thing we're seeing here with PSYOPs in the three different kinds, it's all dealing with military. So when we talk about the psychological operations or the psychological warfare, understand that this isn't just, regular warfare. This is military style warfare on the minds of the masses, of the citizens. This is the military behind a lot of stuff that you're seeing going on, whether it's the mainstream news, the media, these particular simulations that are being ran, the different things that you're being taught in school, and in your healthcare system, your religion. These are all military-backed operations. There are different levels to military or to warfare. It's not just all shooting and bombing. Because if you can defeat your enemy psychologically, then you don't have to lift a finger physically to go to war with them. It says between 2010 and 2014, PSYOP was renamed Military Information Support Operations, then briefly renamed PSYOP in August 2014, only to return to MISO shortly thereafter in 2015. The term was again renamed back to PSYOP in 2017. Okay, so the military has its own branch referred to as PSYOP. And I'm going to show you, brothers and sisters, this logo here. This is a U.S. Army logo for PSYOP, Psychological Operations. Okay, so when you talk about psychological operations and PSYOPs, it's military. It's the military's warfare on a psychological level. And here's another emblem of the military PSYOP segment of the military. It says here, persuade, change, influence. So why is it that when we read 2nd Esdras 16 and it says all these things are sent as scourges for amendment? So in one side you have the Most High God trying to persuade, change, and influence the minds of men into righteousness. But then on the other side, you have the devil, whose job is to persuade, change, and influence the minds of men into serving him, knowingly or ignorantly. Right? Let's go back to PSYOP here. And there's a lot of information in here. So I'm just going to try to hit a couple points. It says media for PSYOP because it says different types of PSYOPs. And it says media. It says PSYOP conveys messages via visual, audio, and audio-visual media. Military psychological operations at the tactical level are usually delivered by loudspeaker and face-to-face communication. For more deliberate campaigns, they may use leaflets, radio, or television or television. So the military is using the television, radio, literature, as part of their psychological operations campaign and agenda. It says strategic operations may use radio or television broadcasts, various publications, airdrop leaflets, or as part of a covert operations with material placed in foreign news media. So they can even infiltrate other countries' news to put their psychological propaganda in place to influence the citizens of those countries against their own government. Because it's all about controlling the minds of the masses and putting you under their spell. It says the majority of U.S. military psychological operation units are in the Army. And that's why I showed this U.S. Army psychological operations badge here. All right. This is where you're getting most of your psychological operation is coming from the Army. Okay, it's coming from the Army, and they're using the media, they're using television, they're using radio to wage war against the people. And if you're not equipped in this war to understand their tactics, their strategies, right? Their Jedi mind tricks, their psychological warfare, you will become a victim to it. You will succumb, which a lot of people out here have done. You will succumb to the fear, the trauma, okay, that's being waged on your mind to get you to cave into the pressure, to jump off the cliff, or to drink the Kool-Aid. Check this out, though. As you can see, there's a lot of information here, but I want to show something key. Okay, here's another point. Central Intelligence Agency. Psychological operations was assigned to the pre CIA Office of Policy Coordination with oversight by the Department of State. The overall psychological operations of the United States, overt and covert, were to be under the policy direction of the U.S. Department of State during peacetime and the early stages of war. So the CIA, we talked about the CIA with Operation Paperclip and how the CIA was pretty much spawned out of Nazi Germany with the Bushes. Okay. History of U.S. psychological warfare. World War I. There's a history of the PSYOPs. World War II. More history. So if World War I and World War II have a history of psychological warfare, would it then not make sense that World War III would as well? Not only during World War III, but the things that would lead up to World War III becoming a world war. Radio. We talked about it. There's okay, here it is right here. Controversies. CNN and NPR interns incident. Who is CNN? The news network. It says here, in 2000, it came to light that soldiers from the 4th Psychological Operations Group, there they go, had been interning at the American news networks, cable news network, CNN, and National Public Radio during the late 1990s. So the military's interns were within CNN. The program was an attempt to provide its PSYOP personnel with the expertise developed by the private sector under its training with industry program. The program caused concern about the influence these soldiers might have on American news, and the programs were terminated. So they tell us they were terminated. But nonetheless, here it is. We see CNN with the military 4th Psychological Operations Group infiltration, pretty much open arms, come on in to our news network with your military psychological warfare. Right? So, and there's a lot more here, but for the sake of time and getting through the information tonight, we're going to have to let brothers and sisters look at this and read this on their own time. But I wanted to go ahead now. I wanted to lay out the psychological operation so that brothers and sisters, when you're looking at information, all right, especially information that's being given mainstream, you have to be able to read between the lines, and you have to be able to see the devil in the details. Okay? Because there's a warfare going on for your mind and your thoughts and your emotions. And you have to realize and understand that. And see, this is the power of being patient, praying, fasting, and not making decisions in haste, and kind of sitting back, watching, and being led by the Holy Spirit in your decision making, so that you're not being psychologically manipulated by a PSYOP. So, speaking of PSYOPs, let's go ahead now going into the cyber terrorism, the invisible boogeyman aspect of tonight's broadcast. I have a video here. This is off National Geographic. It says the future of cyber warfare, origins, the journey of humankind. All right, let's check this out.
September 11th, 2001 terror strikes set the tone for warfare in the 21st century.
So 9/11 terror strikes set the stage for, let's hear that again.
September 11, 2001 terror strikes set the tone for warfare in the 21st century.
Set the tone for warfare in the 21st century. Again, trauma-based mind control, fear-based mind control. When you see something like this happen, you got to think about the trauma that comes on the mind and the brain and the fear when you see something like this happen, especially if this is your country. Now, whatever follows this, you're more susceptible to accept, like 22 terrorists in airplanes with box cutter knives, hijacking planes and doing this feat. You're more ready to accept that. You're more ready to accept, hey, this happened over in the Middle East. These are the people from the Middle East. Let's go to war over there. Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Libya. Let's go to war with them. They did this. Okay? This is the trauma that these events cause. And this is part of the psychological warfare, or the PSYOP.
But the 21st century has also seen the rise of another kind of warfare. Warfare that lets nations and loners do battle without guns or bombs. These days, the biggest threat we face may be a rogue actor with a laptop and a desire to wreak havoc.
So the biggest threat we face is a rogue actor with a laptop, according to National Geographic. This is the biggest threat we face.
Our nation's national security is concerned, we have an advantage over every other form of competition with possible allies, except one, and that's cyber warfare. And when you see the potential of what a successful cyber attack can achieve, it's enough to make you deeply concerned.
So this is all part of the PSYOP. It's to get you to believe what they're saying is real. That America has control or an advantage over everything militarily. There's a superiority. Except for one. Cyber warfare is the only one that America doesn't have there's a vulnerability there. This is what they would want you to believe. So again, problem, reaction, solution with the Hegelian dialectic. When the event happens, you're more ready to accept and believe the story and narrative.
This is going to be the new battlefield, an unseen, invisible battlefield where teams of hackers from various nations will duel.
This is going to be the new battlefield, an unseen, invisible battlefield.
In 2010, a computer virus named Stuxnet demolished a secret Iranian nuclear weapons plant. Hackers at Symantec Corporation unraveled its mysteries.
What made Stuxnet different was it didn't just stick to the cyber world. It actually breached and caused sort of real-world kinetic damage. It's nothing that we had ever seen before. And so Stuxnet just began spreading all around the world onto Windows machines everywhere. But what it was doing was it was also looking for something else. It was looking for these things that are called PLCs, or these small computers that control things like factories, like the power grid. What you see here is the code that is put onto the PLC, and this is the normal process. Code goes onto the PLC, turns the PLC on or off, and controls it. When we first got the code, it's literally zeros and ones. You know, it's sort of unintelligible.
Fair use. Fair use.
It was only later that we were able to determine that actually this code was targeted specifically at Iran's uranium enrichment plant in Natanz.
Who was this targeted to? Let's hear him say that again. Who did they target in this?
We were able to determine that actually this code was targeted specifically at Iran's uranium enrichment plant in Natanz.
This was targeted specifically at Iran, their enrichment facilities. Let's see if Iran, if we deal more with them later in this broadcast, because all of this is going to come full circle and tie in to, again, how does this cyber terrorism lead to World War III?
Uranium enrichment facilities are very secure facilities. It's not like they're connected to the internet. You can't get your code in and out in that way. So one of the ways Stuxnet was able to get into the facility was via USB key. So it was able to infect USB keys, and then somebody would bring USB key with them into the secure facility, not realizing it was infected, plug it into a computer inside, and then that computer inside would be infected.
We don't know definitively who is behind Stuxnet, but it's very clear that it's a nation state, and it's nation states that had something against Iran. And it's likely that it isn't a single nation state. You have to remember as well with cyber warfare that the sort of barrier to entry is quite low. If a country wants to do something like build a nuclear missile, that's actually quite difficult. But when you talk about something like cyber warfare, it's actually quite cheap and quite easy for a country to develop a cyber weapon. And that cyber weapon can have equivalent effects. You could have a cyber weapon potentially shut down the power grid, for example, on the whole East Coast. New York is out. Well,
See that? So that's the psychological operation. So when these events start to happen, they have their invisible boogeyman that they can blame it on. And people will accept that as reality, as being truth, even though they're being psychologically manipulated behind who the real culprits are, all because you believe the delusion, right? You've been convinced, and now through the fear and trauma on your mind, on your psyche, you're willing and readily to accept whatever the solution is to get back to the old normal.
you can't even withdraw money. You can imagine people panic starting, and people.
You can imagine people panic. You can't even withdraw money. So now panic and hysteria starts to set in.
People trying to get cash. You can't get cash. ATMs aren't working. Then things like your water waste treatment plants aren't working. There's no clean water. There's going to be a run on stores. Stores potentially aren't even operating. Your credit card's not going to work at the store. There'll be absolutely mass panic.
If you can...
It'll be mass panic. So if you can imagine 2020 and the biological virus, or what they said was, and what that caused on the human psyche and the trauma. Imagine what a digital virus, right? A cyber virus, and what type of trauma that will cause on the human psyche in that said event.
Blind the U.S. military. If you can shut down our GPS and our computer networks, our military is basically unable to function, and it could take days or weeks to get those systems back up and running. They can.
Now, mind you, they're talking about this could shut down the whole military, but we just read psychological operations. Who are the ones that are behind PSYOP? The U.S. Army, right? So you think the military is really going to suffer in all this? You got another thing coming. Right? This is what they want you to believe. They're the ones who are orchestrating this whole narrative.
Can do tremendous damage. They can defeat your armies, your fleets, your air forces by simply blinding them, by taking down their cyber systems. I think that's a huge risk that we face.
With cyber war, I always think one of the most effective ways to fight against cyber is to find the computer and the operator and put a bullet through both of them.
All right, so we have more to come on when it comes to videos. We have another video we're going to check out later, but moving on, staying with tonight's title. Let's get it again. The name of tonight's broadcast: Cyber Polygon, Cyber Terrorism, the Next Invisible Boogeyman, REDUX. Speaking of Cyber Polygon, This comes off of zerohedge.com. Zerohedge.com. It says here, here's what happened at Cyber Polygon, and you're not going to like it. July 15, 2021. Cyber Polygon, a simulation about a cyber pandemic, took place July 9, 2021. Many Americans felt widespread concern prior to the event. Why is this? In short, because past simulations ended up becoming a reality. Could the Cyber Polygon simulation become a reality? Many Americans thought so. Derek Bronze points out in his article that the world has experienced many simulations that came to fruition only a short time later. For example, on October 18, 2019, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the World Economic Forum, and the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security conducted Event 201. Event 201 was a simulation of how the world would react if a COVID-91 pandemic swept across the planet. Less than 6 months later, the Organization Health World declared COVID-91 to be a pandemic. Right? So just like their psychological operations they run, they also run simulations in advance that usually mirror the reality in the future. Interestingly, just as Cyber Polygon was about to start, a real attack occurred. From NBC News, one of the most prolific ransomware gangs, REVil, conducted its boldest attacks yet over the 4th of July weekend. Okay? And again, ransomware is a ransom to get, according to their narrative, for the hackers to get paid before they unlock your systems. In this case, it was for $70 million. Cyber Polygon 2020 digital pandemic is now complete. Many may wonder just what in the world happened there. The convention was kind enough to publish the findings for the rest of us to pursue at our leisure. As noted by their official website, the central theme of the event was a digital pandemic. No surprise to those of us who paid attention. It's because of this moniker that so many people have been concerned in the first place. So we had a biological pandemic last year after a Event 201 simulation was ran in 2019. And this year they've been running a digital cyber simulation. Digital pandemic this year. Videos published by the World Economic Forum set mental alarms off for Americans nationwide. According to this video, a cyber attack could be 10 times more prevalent than what we've experienced with COVID-91. See that? 10 times worse than what happened in 2020. The narrator within the video states, fortunately, at least until now, cyber attacks have not impacted our health the way pandemics have, at least until now. The video goes on to state the only way to stop the exponential propagation of a Davik-like cyber threat is to fully disconnect the millions of vulnerable devices from one another and from the internet. How would a full disconnect be implemented, and what would the effects be? One possible way would involve the use of an internet kill switch. So when you hear terms like that, understand and know that it's no cyber attack. An internet kill switch. Not only do those exist, but the U.S. government has access to one. Okay, remember, I had a kill switch put on my phone, and I couldn't make phone calls until I called and spoke with my service provider to get a free next generation cell phone. Okay, so if they want to put a kill switch on your ability to communicate or to have access, it's very, very simple and easy. It says theoretically, if you can turn off the internet, large segments of the population will be disconnected from one another. Meaning, what happens in one geographic region will go utterly unrecognized by citizens everywhere else. Think about the practical implications of such. Think about the potential for further human rights violations. Perhaps a world where all news sources disappear overnight, with your favorite collectivist news agency being the only website still on the air. Just take a look at Egypt in 2011. Protests by citizens fed up with the constant human rights violations they experience under the current administration spread throughout the entire nation of Egypt in 2011. In an attempt to disband the protesters and keep them from organizing, Egypt hit its internet kill switch. Now this I can personally attest to, because during this time, of course, we had those people that were migrating over into that area of the world in that particular country who were actually reporting real time as these events were happening, you know, and could attest to experiencing these things happening, to where because of the protesting, they weren't allowing people to communicate. They cut off all communications in Egypt. You know, being able to make phone calls, internet, no communication. And that's a country like Egypt whose infrastructure technologically is in no comparison to the technological infrastructure that a country like America has. Okay. Egyptians responded by resorting to mesh networks such as FireChat to communicate with one another. Still, there's no doubt that the internet shutdown was a significant blow to both the people and their businesses. Okay, so this is showing you that they can do it. Though the internet was dead for only 5 days, it cost the Egyptian economy approximately $90 million US. Okay, just in 5 days. It says here approximately 5 million people from 57 nations tuned into the live stream. The Cyber Polygon 2020 live stream featured global leaders and experts, Klaus Schwab being one of those. Okay. We talked about this last week. You had Interpol there, ICANN, Visa, IBM. The leaders and experts spoke on the subject of cyber threats and cyber pandemics, but that wasn't all. This is from the official website. The experts addressed the latest trends and technological threats, shared their experience in creating cybersecurity ecosystems, talked about the transforming threat landscape, and discussed the problem of fake news and how to discern misinformation on the web. We're going to talk more about that. Okay, so they have an issue with what they would call fake news and misinformation on the internet. Kind of like how when you come on YouTube and you say anything against the Organization Health World, against their campaign, and you get censored or terminated, that right there, okay, that's a problem. So what's the solution? Hackers, cyber terrorists that took down the internet or took down YouTube or took down whatever platform they want to take down so that you can't do what you need to do to get information and communicate. Coincidentally, one of the end goals of Cyber Polygon was to determine how to do a more thorough job of silencing all criticism that goes against the mainstream narrative. Okay, so that was something they discussed. Anything that's going against the mainstream and it's on the internet, how do we deal with that? What are we going to do? What are we going to do to stop the criticism against the mainstream media like CNN, who we just saw had psychological operations military in their institution working? So they're working so hard to get this PSYOP agenda-based narratives out. And here it is, you have those that would be an opposition to that coming on and destroying everything that they've done. They can't have that. Because people aren't watching TV like they used to. And that's really where you would go to see those type of programs. People have now migrated to the internet, which is like a wilderness of uncontrolled information. So we're winning the information war. All right? And they're losing their grip and control on the information, right? On being able to control the narrative. So they must come up with a solution to fix that. Enter cyber polygon. If one can shut down all alternative viewpoints, one can become the sole provider of truth. So this is right out of 1984. We've talked about 1984, the book. Okay, if you can shut down any alternative viewpoints or ideologies to where we have our main hub, the mainstream hub, the organization health world, or the CNNs, and you can only get information from them, then now you become the monopoly on truth, while everyone else is silenced. It doesn't matter how many scientists a person has to back up what they say. It doesn't matter how many links to scientific journals a person adds. If anyone dares go against what the politicians and their fact checkers deem to be correct, they will be silenced. They will be silenced. Okay. It says Cyber Polygon 2020 may be over, but it's not the end. So, yeah, the simulation came to an end. But understand that just because the simulation came to an end doesn't mean that that the exercise didn't go real time and go live. And we're now living in the simulation. Just like after Event 201. Okay. We now become the real-time guinea pigs in their experiment of the cyber polygon, the same way we did with after Event 201 last year in 2020. Okay, and there's more. All right, there's more to go in with this censorship and what they're doing with the censorship. So let's get that. So this is on Zero Hedge. This is November 24th, 2020. It says U.S., UK intel agencies declare cyber war on independent media. British and American state intelligence agencies are weaponizing truth to quash shot hesitancy as both nations prepare for mass inoculations in a recently announced cyber war to be commanded by AI-powered arbiters of truth against information sources that challenge official narratives. All right. So as they get ready to launch, their campaign of mass juice drinking, they then are launching a cyber warfare to go with the psychological operations or the psychological warfare. Okay, to take everyone else down and silence them so that they're the only voice. As this is an attack on independent media. It says, in just the past week, the national security states of the US and UK have discreetly let it be known that the cyber tools and online tactics previously designed for use in the post-9/11 war on terror are now being repurposed for use against information sources promoting juice hesitancy and information related to Davik 91 that runs counter to their state narratives. So again, 9/11 set the stage for all of this, as the National Geographic clip we watched showed. It set the stage for the new warfare in the 21st century. This new invisible boogeyman, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, the Taliban. Okay, now you got diseases that you can't see, but they're outside. Don't go outside, right? Now it's the hackers, the cyber terrorists. You can't see them, but they're everywhere. They're gonna take down your computer. They're gonna take down your supermarket's computer. The systems at your job, it's all coming down. The financial systems, you can't go to the ATM and get money. All right, this invisible boogeyman. It says a new cyber offensive was launched on Monday by the UK's Signal Intelligence Agency, Government Communications Headquarters, which seeks to target websites that publish content deemed to be propaganda. So now, when you bring an alternative view, you're called the propaganda. When those of us that have brought an alternative view have been consistent, versus those who are deemed to have the truth, narratives and stories change every day, every second, every minute. Their stories change. Their mandates change. It's do this 1 second, do this the next second. That raises concerns regarding state-sponsored Davik 91 shot development and the multinational pharmaceutical corporations involved. All right. Basically, you're not going to go against the beast. You're not going to speak against the beast. Who can make war with the beast? As Revelation 13 tells us. It says similar efforts are underway in the U.S. with the U.S. military recently funding a CIA-backed firm. So we just talked about the psychological operations, how both the U.S. military and the CIA were both part of PSYOP. And both of those are involved. It says stuff with former counterterrorism officials who were behind the occupation of Iraq, another PSYOP, and the rise of the so-called Islamic State, another PSYOP, to develop an AI algorithm. That's a demon. An AI algorithm is a demon aimed specifically at new websites promoting suspected disinformation related to the Davik 91 crisis, and the U.S. military-led, check this out, what's leading the Davik 19? U.S. military-led shot effort known as Operation Warp Speed. So when we show these things, brothers and sisters, if one can't see the devil's in the details, that this is warfare and that the military is at the heart of all of this, you just don't want to see it. You just don't want to see it. You'd rather believe the lie, believe the delusion, believe the fantasy, the fairy tale. And 99 times out of 100, it's because the person whose mind is in that delusion, they love this world so much that they can't let it go. They love themselves, their life, so much that they cannot let it go. And just like how Morpheus was telling Neo in the Matrix that those that were in the Matrix would fight for the Matrix, they would defend it, they would fight for it to keep it intact against any threats. Now those people who do not want to see this, they now become those Matrix sentinels that will fight for the beast, to protect the beast, because they love the beast. And they are dangerous. So be careful who you are communicating with, whose houses you're going over, who you're letting in your house, who you're letting in your circle. They could very well be the agent that takes you down in all of this. As Christ told us, that they shall offer many up, deliver many up to government and turn them in. Okay, I don't know what's going on with Blog Talk tonight, but for some reason it did not set for the full 3 hours, so let me hang up and call back in. Well, actually, I'm just going to hang up because there's no callers in the queue. So there's no reason to stay on there going into overtime. So let me go ahead and hang up there. And maybe next week we'll pick back up and open up the call lines. But let's see here. All right, so this is an attack against those who are speaking out against the status quo, the mainstream narrative. It says here, UK intelligence's new cyber war targeting anti-shot propaganda. So the UK's GHQ has begun an offensive cyber operation to disrupt anti-shot propaganda being spread by hostile states. It's using a toolkit developed to tackle disinformation and recruitment material peddled by Islamic State to do so. In addition, the UK government has ordered the British military 77th Brigade, which specializes in information warfare, to launch an online campaign to counter deceptive narratives about Davik 91 shot candidates. So now if you speak out against this particular agenda, as we've seen here on YouTube, you are the same as ISIS. You're a terrorist. You're not allowed to have an opposing view or a alternative view. You have to believe what they tell you. Does that sound like free will? Or does that sound like submission? That you're going to bow down to the beast and serve and worship the beast. So we can see just how close we are to the mark. to where that will be the ultimate badge. And I know y'all have seen where the elders showed today that now the FDA has approved Elon Musk Neuralink brain chip. We talked about the Neuralink before. Okay. The same man who said that the mRNA technology is like a software program and that we could turn you into a butterfly has now been FDA approved for his Neuralink brain chip technology. We are close to where, unless you have that type of technology embedded in your body, your head or right arm, you will not be able to buy or sell. But they need the software inside you first. Before they give you the badge, and before you're compatible with the mark, the hardware, before the hardware will work, you must first get the software. Enter the Jim Jones juice. All right. What's coming through that injection is the software. So that the beast can hack you and have you do its bidding and whatever it would have you do. And there's a lot here in this post, but it talks a lot about weaponizing truth with AI. It talks a lot about this artificial intelligence, which is a demon. Speaking of Elon Musk even said unleashing the AI is unleashing the demon. All right. So this AI algorithm, demonic, artificial intelligence all around us, because this technology-driven world, we've surrounded ourselves with technology. And the demons that now will power the brain autonomously of that technology. All right. So I wish I could go through all of this, but a lot of this stuff is even words I can't even speak on this platform. So you will all have these links within the next 48 hours on this stream, so you can go in and look at all of this. But the main thing we're highlighting here is the war on independent media, and not just any war, but a cyber war, digital war. So who are the real cyber terrorists? Who are the real hackers? Who are the ones unleashing AI bots to attack and target you and shut you down? So part of the, we wrestle not with flesh and blood, and the invisible boogeyman. There is an invisible boogeyman, but it's being able to understand who he is, what he is, versus what they're telling you, the invisible boogeyman or boogeymen, as the cyber boogeyman is just one of the many. Right? Last year in 2020, they told you don't go outside. There's a boogeyman out there. They'll get you. Before that, everywhere you go, whether it's a supermarket or a sports game, a boogeyman could hop out the trash can and get you. With a suicide bombing vest on. All these boogeymen around every corner. They're everywhere. They're everywhere, but they're nowhere. Right? You can't see them, but they're there. So it's being able to identify who are the real boogeymen. What is the real invisible enemy that we are against? Is it the one that we are being told by them exists, or the one the scriptures tell us? This is Zero Hedge again, July 18, 2021, ending anonymity why the WEF's partnership against cybercrime threatens the future of privacy. With many focusing on the recent cyber polygon exercise, less attention has been paid to the World Economic Forum's real ambitions in cyber security to create a global organization aimed at gutting even the possibility of anonymity online. No privacy. We're going to know exactly who you are once you get online. I'm going to talk more about that. With the governments of the US, UK, and Israel on board, along with some of the world's most powerful corporations, it is important to pay attention to their end game, not just the simulations. Okay? Just another card they can play to come after the everyday average person who's not doing anything, minding their business. They want to be left alone. They don't want any parts of the mandates that are happening. Okay? They're not for those things. Okay? Those will be the criminalized in our very near future, and actually they're being criminalized now. One more article before we shift into the last part of this broadcast. And see, this is what it's all leading to. This is what it's all leading to. InsidePaper.com. Hackers shut down system for booking Davic shots in Italian region that includes Rome. This is August 1st, 2021, 5 days ago. The IT systems of the company that manages Davic 91 shot appointments for the Lazio region surrounding Rome were attacked and shut down by hackers on Sunday, according to the regional government. So you got to ask yourself, brothers and sisters, another psyop, another false flag. Who are they going to blame that on? Those that would attack, right? Their Davic 91 appointments for the shots. Hackers that took their system down so people couldn't come in and get their shots. So they've run these psychological operations so that now the invisible boogeyman is out there. The sentiment is already rising against those that don't want to drink the juice. So it must be them that caused this system to get shut down. I mean, that's the only possibility, right? I mean, it couldn't be possible the government would make this stuff up now, would they? Even though in their own papers they're said to do these things. Even though they have their own, segments of their military that are named PSYOP, that, unleash military psychological operations on the masses. It says the website of Lazio, the Italian region that includes Rome, was down on Sunday due to a cyber attack, making it impossible for people to book a Davic shot, reports Reuters. A hacker attack is underway. All defense and verification operations are ongoing to avoid prolonging the cut in services. So now people can't get their shots. It could be slowed down. It says this is a very serious event. It is blocking a crucial service. So again, problem, reaction, solution. Because they put this stuff out and say this is the reality, even though we know it's a psyop, what are they going to do as a solution to this now? Right? More security and more demonizing of those who don't want to participate with drinking the juice. More security and more demonization. So that's why when we talk about these things, we can't look at them lightly and just say, well, you know, cyber attacks happen all the time, no big deal, right? Because even before this particular article, you know, these are things that are pretty much can be, you know, these things can pretty much be predicted. That this is what's going to end up happening. Because it fits their narrative. It fits their ability to have control and power over those who would be in opposition. Over those that would fight against the beast. So we talked about, now that we're coming to a conclusion on this information, how does all this now lead to World War III? Right? How does the digital pandemic, the cyber pandemic, we've already tied those two things together with the biological pandemic of last year, but now how do both of those, primarily when it comes to the cyber pandemic, cyber terrorism and the cyber warfare, how does that now lead us up to World War III? Well, you wouldn't believe this, but we did the broadcast July, I think it was what? The 24th, 23rd? The first Cyber Polygon broadcast, we did that 2 weeks ago. Well, a few days after that, July 28th, 5 days later, old Creepy Joe makes a statement about cyber warfare, cyber security. And this is off Reuters. And he states, if U.S. has real shooting war, it could be result of what? Shooting war, that's your World War III. It could be result of what? Cyber attacks. This coming on the heels of Cyber Polygon, Cyber Yankee, all these cyber simulations that the military just ran. That's the translation. If World War III happens, the real shooting begins. It could come from a cyber attack. Let's hear the creepster and what he has to say here. Old Crime Bill, Creepy Sleepy Joe. Let's see what he has to say here.
But I think it's more likely we're going to end up, if we end up in a war, a real shooting war with a major power, it's going to be as a consequence of a cyber breach of great consequence. And it's increasing exponentially, the capabilities. When I was with Mr. Putin, who has a real problem, he's sitting on top of an economy that has nuclear weapons and oil wells and nothing else. Nothing else. Their economy is what, the 8th smallest in the world now? Largest in the world? He knows he's in real trouble, which makes him even more dangerous in my view.
And it goes back to Russia, the boogeyman, one of the boogeymen that they've used since World War II. When Russia was the ally in World War II, Germany was the enemy. As soon as World War II is over, Germany becomes the ally and Russia becomes the enemy. They're all Esau. Red people. See that red? Yeah, Esau can't hide himself. He's been identified. Okay? This is a red man here. President Joe Biden on Tuesday warned that if the U.S. ended up in a real shooting war with a major power, it could be the result of a significant cyber attack on the country, highlighting that Washington sees as growing threats posed by Russia and China. Right? More boogeymen. If you want to go to war, you make up an enemy to justify the war. Okay? Russia and China keep cyber attacking, and they're going to cause a world war here, according to old Creepy Joe. Cybersecurity has risen to the top of the agenda for the Biden administration after a series of high-profile attacks on entities such as network management company SolarWinds, the Colonial Pipeline Company, meat processing company JBS, and software firm Kaseya hurt the U.S. far beyond just the companies hacked. Some of the attacks affected fuel and food supplies in parts of the U.S. So what is at the top of the Biden administration? What's an agenda at the top? Is it the DAVIC 91? No, it's cybersecurity. DAVIC 91 is taking the back seat as much as they talk about that every day. But the top now has become cybersecurity. Now, this was just a few days after our last broadcast that he came out and said this. I think it's more than likely we're going to end up, if we end up in a war, a real shooting war with a major power, it's going to be as a consequence of a cyber breach of great consequence, and it's increasingly exponentially the capabilities. So this is planting a seed for the next world war. Because the next world war isn't going to be a traditional war that's fought with soldiers standing on one side and soldiers standing on the other side like it was in the old warfare, ancient warfare. The new warfare is going to be a digital warfare. More fought with machines and bombs, things from afar. You know, you're already seeing people fighting this warfare with drones. They're sitting behind a computer, technology, digital, and they're fighting with drones. See if there's any more here. All right, so that's pretty much it here on this article right here. But again, the real war is going to be a result of a cyber attack, a cyber Pearl Harbor, if you could better put it. Now let's see if we have anything to back these claims up. Do we have any more information that we can back this up with? Let's see. We'll get to that, but before we get to that, we must first talk about this. case some of you all were caught up behind the Dovik 19 circus, or the Dovik 91 circus, excuse me, off RT.com, Israel is ready to strike Iran, says defense minister, amid simmering tensions with enduring foe. So in the height of the new variant, at the height of the cyber warfare and the cyber security, all these different cards being played. Now here comes the Iran card being played. Israel is ready to strike Iran. Simmering tensions. August 5th, 2021. This is just yesterday. Some of y'all may be sleeping on this information right here. And I understand, because they keep you so inundated and bombarded, right, with the Jim Jones Jew circus. Israel's defense minister has said the country's armed forces are ready to strike Iran should it become necessary, as tensions rise further after an Iran-linked attack on an Israeli tanker killed 2 people. So they're saying Iran has killed 2 people on an Israeli tanker. On Thursday, Israeli Defense Minister Benny Gantz was asked by Ynet News whether Israel was ready to strike Iran. Gantz answered simply with one word: yes. The minister went on to say that Tel Aviv sees it as important to mobilize the international community to counter Iran's influence and growing assertiveness. We can't tag Iran as solely an Israeli problem and absolve the rest of the world from this issue. So what they're saying is that the whole world must get involved. The beginning of wars, as Ezra told us in 2nd Ezra 16. Okay? It isn't just going to be Iran and Israel in this battle. People are going to have to choose sides. Okay? This is going to be a world war. At the same time, Israel is saying this: Tehran vows strong response to any adventure as UK summons Iranian ambassador over attack on tanker off Amman. So Iran is saying if the West, which is Israel, the UK, the United States, they want to do something silly or crazy, they're being very adventurous. That's going to be an adventure for them to go down that road. When questioned, Gantz confirmed that he was talking about the allied nations supporting military action against Iran. The world, here goes the key word, the world needs to deal with Iran. The region needs to deal with Iran. And Israel also needs to do its part in the situation. Okay? A world war. And I'm going to show you how all this connects with, we just talked about Creepy Joe. He already planted the seeds. When the bullets start shooting, it's probably going to be from a cyber breach. Cyber attack. That's when the guns really start sounding off. That's when the bombs start dropping, as well as the cyber warfare. Right? Because remember earlier in the National Geographic, there was Stuxnet, which was a computer virus designed to attack Iranian enrichment facilities. Okay, that was clear back in 2010. Speaking of all that, the defense minister also claimed Iran was just 10 weeks away from having enough fissile material to produce a nuclear bomb, also known as breakout time. So we've been hearing for about 4 or 5 decades now that Iran is about to make a nuclear missile. This is since the 70s. And now here it is, 2021, it's breakout time. They're just about ready to get one. 5 decades worth of seeds being planted. So right in the midst of these pandemics, here comes breakout time, right? So the Israeli Foreign Ministry said that the commander of the Iranian's Air Force is behind dozens of terror attacks in the region, employing UAVs and missiles. Okay, that's drone warfare. Drone warfare is really a form of cyber warfare. Unmanned aerial vehicles. Okay, it's like playing a video game. So now, how does all of this tie into cyber warfare? We're going to get there. But at the same time that you have this threat coming from Israel, this comes off the Sun.com. Biggest U.S. Navy war games in 40 years. This is August 4th, 2021, 2 days ago. So at the same time of all these threats being made, Biden talking about a cyber warfare, cyber terrorist attack, Israel screaming out the whole world needs to fight against Iran. Biggest U.S. Navy war games in 40 years to prepare for World War III across 17 time zones amid tensions with who? Russia. Remember they said Russia's doing cyber attacks. China's doing cyber attacks. And Iran, at least up until this point in the broadcast, we haven't got to the cyber attack part yet, but they've supposedly killed 2 Israeli sailors on a tanker. Okay, perfect time to have the biggest war games, U.S. Navy war games in 40 years, wouldn't you say? Thousands of Marines and sailors are taking part in the U.S. Navy's largest war games in 40 years as Washington prepares for a future world war amid rising tensions with Russia and China. Now, why would you be practicing or exercising these type of war games just hypothetically? Why would you be doing it just for fun or just in case? No, you do these things in preparation for what you know is going to happen. But my question is, how do you know a world war is going to happen? The only way you know what's going to happen is if you somehow have a crystal ball and you can see into the future, or you're the ones who are creating, orchestrating, and manufacturing and know for sure you're going to make it happen one way or the other. So it's all kind of warfare being exercised right now. Okay? And while the people sleep and get distracted with frivolous matters, the world is posturing for World War III amidst pandemics. What did Esdras tell us in 2nd Esdras 16? Verse 14, behold, the plagues are sent and shall not return again until they come upon the earth. The fire is kindled and shall not be put out till it consume the foundation of the earth. Verse 18, the beginning of sorrows and great mournings, the beginning of famine and great death, the beginning of wars. Right? All these things happening, and who's paying attention? Who's paying attention versus who are those living as in the days of Noah, eating and drinking and marrying and acting like everything is fine in this abnormal Twilight Zone reality we're living in currently. Right? Who's getting their house in order? Who's getting their body and temple in order along with their house for these times? Woe is me, who will deliver me in those days? How many people are asking those questions right now? Very, very few people are asking. Okay? This is not a game. Yeah, they call it war games, and it is a game to them. All right? This is not a game for the saints. This is right. This is real life. It's not a video game. It's not a movie. It's not a cartoon. Okay, how does this all attach to cyber warfare? Building off of Creepy Joe, what he said. This comes off Zero Hedge. It says massive cyber attack on 40 Israeli firms believed to be Iran's revenge for assassination. This happened back in December of 2020. But notice Iran being linked to a massive cyber attack on who? Israel. Iran has repeatedly vowed revenge against those behind the assassination of its top nuclear scientist, Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, outside Tehran on November 27. Tehran has blamed Israel for carrying out the high-tech hit, which appears to have involved one or more remote guns activated via satellite targeting. But it's widely expected this revenge, in whatever form it takes, will initially be limited, given that on the one hand, the Islamic Republic knows the outgoing Trump administration may be looking for a casus belli that can justify military intervention and escalation against Iranian targets. But on the other, the brazen killing of Iranian officials just can't go unanswered. On Monday, Israeli media is widely reporting that Iran's revenge has likely begun in the form of wide-scale cyber attacks. Against who? Israeli firms that are in some cases central to the financial, technology, and logistic sectors. Okay, so it doesn't matter whether or not this is real or not. All they need for you to do is believe it's real, that Iran really did this attack. All right, because if they did, or if they get you to believe it, now when they go to war with Iran, you won't question why. Right? You'll accept and expect it because Iran did this bad thing. All right? So that's Iran. What about FBI? China is behind past oil and gas pipeline cyber attacks. Sunday, July 25th, 2021. State-sponsored Chinese actors targeted U.S. oil and gas pipeline companies in a spear-phishing and intrusion campaign between 2011 and 2013, a joint cybersecurity advisor co-authored by the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Agency and the Federal Bureau of Investigation said this week. So again, it doesn't matter if China did these things or not. The only thing that matters is whether or not you believe they did. Because by you believing they did, it justifies what? Our next article off Zero Hedge. Are we on the cusp of the first ever cyber world war? Say it again. Are we on the cusp of the first ever cyber world war? March 25th, 2020. In its quest for global, economic, and geopolitical domination, America has made many enemies to help fund 800 military bases all over the world. Last year, the American taxpayer spent $620 billion on defense, $69 billion for war funding, and $10 billion on cybersecurity. Military spending represents about 40% of America's entire global exports trade. Almost half of America's entire global exports trade is what? Military. America exports military, war. However, corporate America describes as derisory the funding for cybersecurity, and it is stepping up to the challenge as they get to grips with the threats they now face. As a result of government inaction and underfunding, private sector companies have been forced to take cybersecurity more seriously, and according to some projections, will spend an eye-watering $1 trillion on the digital security of their global operations from now until the end of 2021. It says America's enemies are in no position to fight a hot war. It says Russia, North Korea, and Iran are obviously allies of China. So are a number of other countries across the Mideast, Africa, and Asia, weary of endless American intervention in their affairs. It says U.S. cyber attacks against the four rivals will continue to intensify this year, raising the risk of the first ever cyber world war and massive economic, financial, and political disorder. So what they're telling you is that America is at cyber war with Iran, Russia, China, and North Korea. That they're all waging this invisible war behind the scenes, digitally, in the cyber world. In the meantime, the European Central Bank President Christine Lagarde has warned that a cyber attack on European financial markets could cost $645 billion. And while the Western world looks to defend itself from cyber attacks, other threats now require considerable effort and money. One of those is the climate crisis, another card and PSYOP that they are using. It is already causing a huge shift of capital from fossil fuel investments. The signs are there that the focus is now moving its trillions invested in coal, gas, and fracking rigs towards more environmentally friendly forms of power. The point to be made here is that if China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea and others were looking for a moment in time to concentrate their efforts and contain America's hegemonic empire, 2020 is the best opportunity they have ever had. We humans are now living in a two-lane world. One is physical, the other is digital. It's the same for us individually as it is for the country we live in. As for the trigger to a cyber war, here is a good example of that two-lane world. In June last year, Iran fired a surface-to-air missile at an American surveillance drone flying over the Strait of Hormuz and brought it crashing out of the sky. America responded by launching a cyber attack against Iran by hitting Iranian computer systems that control missile and rocket launches. The Iranians now knew where the cybersecurity weaknesses were, and whilst working to plug the holes in their networks, brazenly responded that they weren't done and used cyber attacks against American businesses. This is why the U.S. Department of Homeland Security issued a special alert about an increasing number of cyber attacks from Iran. Attacks which are not only going after U.S. government agencies, but also U.S.-based businesses. It appears to be that America has somehow become more peaceful recently, as it hasn't physically attacked a new country recently, but that's not true. Traditional warfighting methods and cyber warfighting methods are used interchangeably and used in conjunction with economic sanctions and trade wars. This suite of tactics is well underway. It is just that we don't hear the bombs going off. And let me pull my screen up here so you all can see. We showed this Illuminati card game. The Internet Worm card. You got the computer virus card. You got the hackers card. And all of this, and not just this alone, will lead to what? The World War III card. So these are cards in their playbook, in their card book that they've been playing and will continue to play as they have been planning these things out, not only for decades, but for centuries. Okay? When the confusion happens, bombs start dropping. Computer systems going down, grids going down. The bombs start dropping. That's the best time to attack, is when you hit someone's computer systems, software-wise or electrical-wise. Speaking of that, let us go to our last article here. When will America protect itself against EMP, cyber, and ransomware attacks? May 27th, 2021. A long-term outage owing to EMP could disable most critical supply chains, leaving the U.S. population living in conditions similar to centuries past, prior to the advent of electrical power. In the 1800s, the U.S. population was less than 60 million, and those people had many skills and assets necessary for survival without today's infrastructure. An extended blackout today could result in the death of a large fraction of the American people through the effects of societal collapse, disease, and starvation. While national planning and preparation for such events could help mitigate the damage, few such actions are currently underway or even being contemplated. So you have blackouts that could be caused by, again, their cards, solar superstorm, cyber warfare, or electromagnetic pulse attack. So you constantly see these things in the news: solar flares, meteors, cyber attacks, cyber terrorism, cyber warfare, EMP attacks from other countries. You constantly see these things in the news. Because one day you're going to wake up and what's going to be played in the news is going to be going on in real time. And it's not going to be just a simulation or an exercise or a news article or a news segment. It's going to be reality. And it doesn't matter whether or not any of these things are real. It's not going to change the fact that when your electricity don't work, it don't work. Okay? Even if the government's behind it and they do it, at the end of the day, you're affected one way or the other, regardless of what the reason is. All right, but when the grid goes down, they will expect patriotism to the beast to go up. We need your patriotism and support to go to war against the cyber attackers. Okay, so there's a lot more here. You'll have these articles. I'm going to play this video. Go to one last bit of information I want to share, and then we'll go through some scriptures here. Okay, this video is the invisible enemy. Cyber terrorists wreaking havoc and costing billions. 60 Minutes in Australia. Okay, the invisible enemy. The next invisible enemy or boogeyman. Cyber terrorists. Let's check. I'm not going to watch all of this, but let's check some of this out. Cyber good guy, because now he's working for the government, right? He's working for the good guys now. But let's close out.
Tonight, the culmination of...
Don't want that. Let's close out here. I want to get one last thing and then some scripture. And then we'll be finished with tonight's broadcast. Because it's a common thing that is being said in the information and the videos we've seen tonight, is that our reality is becoming more digitally technological or technologically digitized. Right, more machines, more computers, more computer chips, more circuitries and circuit boards, all these things, more artificial intelligence and algorithms, all these things which actually give way for the invisible boogeyman to be able to attack and be unseen and invisible, because all of our systems are now, everything we do in life is now pretty much dependent upon these machines. And I know I had shown this last
people
week.
and prosecute them.
Let me get it here. One second. So what is all this leading to? fact of the matter that you have people who are out here and supposedly hacking and doing all these things, and they're invisible. And so what's the solution to these so-called terrorists, the cyber warfare? Pull it up here. I showed this last week, fair use.
Charter City is stunned by the sudden rollout of Rook Unlimited's most fantastic device ever. The Smart Mark.
The Smart Mark, aka Mark of the Beast. So that every time you go to use the internet, you're only going to be able to access it through this device in your body. Right hand or forehead. The only way you're going to be able to get on the internet. You're not going to have a phone. You're not going to have a computer. This way we can keep track of who's who in the digital world. We can also monitor your biology in case you're a virus or disease carrying person that can spread these things, these pandemics. Now we can monitor your blood real time. We can, send medicines to your body real time. Okay, this is going to be their solution to all of these, different things that they're saying are a problem now. Global warming or climate change. All these things. This is going to be this is going to be the same way they're saying right now that Jim Jones juice is the solution for everything. Right? Not getting outside, getting some sunlight, vitamin D, exercise, eating healthy. No, none of that stuff matters. Only thing that matters is if you're drinking the juice. Okay, the other stuff is not going to help you. Okay? So the same way how they're conditioning people that this is the only solution, how much more is society going to be pushed down this road to then accept the mark of the beast as the only solution to all the problems in the world, right, at that time. But what I wanted to go to, the fact that we're being driven into this machine-based, digital-based, AI-based reality, it reminds me of the movie and franchise Terminator, in specific Skynet. What is Skynet? Skynet is a fictional, artificial, neural, network-based conscious group mind and an artificial general super intelligence system that serves as the antagonistic force of the Terminator franchise. This is the Beast system. Similar to, you could go here, you could type in Beast, Belgium, computer system, right? And there is a computer system in Belgium known as the Beast. Okay, now I don't know if this article is the one or not, but if you just type in Beast Belgium computer system, you have the cloud system where everything is now being uploaded to a cloud. Elon Musk Neuralink. All right, everything is being uploaded to this central hub or Borg, hive mind. Well, in the movie Terminator, this hive mind, artificial neural network based conscious group mind an artificial general superintelligence system is called Skynet. It says, in the first film, it is stated that Skynet was created by Cyberdyne Systems for SAC-NORAD. When Skynet gained self-awareness, humans tried to deactivate it, prompting it to retaliate with a nuclear attack, an event which humankind in or from the future refers to as Judgment Day. John Connor forms a human resistance against Skynet's machines in the future, which includes Terminators, which are cyborgs, part machine, part, carbon with the flesh, right? The iron with the Mary clay, and ultimately leads the resistance to victory. Throughout the film series, Skynet sends various Terminator models back in time to try to kill Connor to ensure Skynet's victory. Now, Terminator is actually part of a book series that Sophia Stewart, who is a sister, wrote, and they took her book and made Terminator the franchise, and they also made Matrix the franchise off of her book. We actually interviewed her twice on the Gathering of Christ Church broadcast back in the day on Blogtalk. She was talking about these things. And John Connor, whose initials are J and C, she named him John Connor because, of course, the same initials would go to Jesus Christ, the Savior. Okay, let me get a piece here. It says, in the original 1984 movie, now notice this movie came out in what year? 1984. A dystopian apocalyptic movie. Skynet is a revolutionary artificial intelligence system built by Cyberdyne Systems for SAC-NORAD. The character Kyle Reese explains in the film, Defense Network computers, new, powerful, hooked into everything, trusted to run it all. They say it got smart, a new order of intelligence, according to Reese. Skynet saw all humans as a threat, not just the ones on the other side, and decided our fate in a microsecond. Extermination. So in this movie, it's showing human extermination or depopulation because people are the threat. Okay, these are the machines that came to this conclusion. It began a nuclear war which destroyed most of the human population and initiated a program of genocide against survivors. Skynet used its resources to gather a slave labor force from surviving humans. Now, I recently watched the, I think it was Terminator Genesis. And in this particular one, there's a computer system, or actually a software called Genesis, to where everybody's cell phones, and they actually talk about it in the movie, it's crazy. They show like how everybody is linked into their smartphones constantly. So this artificial intelligence then got people to accept this new reset called Genesis, to where it was going to reset, the whole society behind this one software program. And that software program is actually going to be the extermination and eradication of mankind. So you have to actually go and watch that, because there's some parts in that movie that are like really on point with what they're doing with this Jim Jones juice. How it talks about in the movie something being injected into the body and through the bloodstream and changing the cells on a cellular level. And if you can actually draw the parallel, you can see how they were pretty much pointing to right now what's going on with this Jim Jones juice. It's crazy. And I think I had seen this movie before, but I think it was Shapat that had actually sent me a clip of that. And I seen it, I'm like, whoa, like sometimes you go back and watch these movies over and you find little tidbits that they put in there as predictive programming that actually, could be 5-10 years down the road, real-time reality. Right? But I wanna go into these scriptures real quick, because we talked about the real invisible boogeyman. They would want you to believe that the real invisible boogeyman is state actors, threat actors, these hackers and rogue countries, terrorist countries, Iran, China, Russia, even invisible enemies that can't be identified. They're out there, but we don't know who they are. We got to find them, right? So I wanted to read some scriptures here so we could identify in the Bible this enemy. And more so, knowing that it's spiritual forces, principalities, rulers of the darkness of this world, the prince of the power of the air. Knowing we identified that last broadcast, I want to now go into how do we now fight against this power and identifying this power. So we're going to the book of Colossians chapter 1. Okay. Colossians chapter 1. And we're going to start at verse 15. It says, "Who is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of every creature?" Now we know this is talking about Christ, the Son of the Heavenly Father, the only begotten Son. It says, "For by him were all things created that are in heaven and that are in earth, visible and invisible." Let me read that again. "For by him were all things created that are in heaven and that are in earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. All things were created by him and for him." Verse 17. "And he is before all things, and by him all things consist." So Christ created everything, visible and invisible. Principalities, those same principalities we spoke of in Ephesians 6. Right? Powers, those powers. He created them. Okay, now those powers then turn to do evil, talking about Lucifer, who fell from heaven, the angels that fell with him, the fallen angels in Genesis 6 that came down and dealt with women. But he still created them. I want to show you something. Matthew 28. I'm going to show you this for a reason here. Matthew 28. Matthew 28 verse 18. It says, "And Jesus, who we know his name in the Hebrew is Yeshua, came and spake unto them, saying, All power is given unto me in heaven and in earth." So those same things he created, both visible and invisible, once he died and was resurrected, all power was given unto him, both in the invisible world, heavenly realm, and in earth. So yes, the devil is the god of this world. He's the prince of the air. meaning this is his kingdom. But his power still isn't more than Christ. Okay? It says, "Go ye therefore and teach all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I have commanded you. And lo, I am with you always, even unto the end of the world." Okay, now we're going to go to Revelations chapter 1. Revelations 1. And there's a lot of scriptures we could go in on this. I'm just going to just hit on a few. But Revelations 1, verse 17 says, "And when I saw him, I fell at his feet as dead. And he laid his right hand upon me, saying unto me, Fear not, I am the first and the last. I am he that liveth and was dead. And behold, I am alive forevermore. Amen. And have the keys of hell and of death." So we're seeing the power that was given to Christ after his death and resurrection. He was given the keys of hell and of death, and also all power was given unto him in heaven and earth. And he told the disciples, Peter, whom he built his church upon, to go out into the whole world, teaching all nations and baptizing them, and to observe all the things that he commanded us to do. So he gave us the power through him. And I'm going to get that scripture here. Philippians chapter 4. Verse 13. "I can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth me." So the reason I'm going over these scriptures is that knowing that we are able to identify the real invisible boogeyman outside of who they would tell us this never-ending invisible boogeyman is, we can bypass all their junk and distortion, okay, and get off that frequency to understand we know who the real invisible enemy is. All right, it's the demons. And Christ, who was given the power once he died and was resurrected, and he's created all of these things, and now he's given us that same power through him to have power over the invisible realm, over this invisible enemy. But it only comes through our righteousness. So if we're not in our righteousness, we have no power against the unseen. All right. Even when we are in righteousness, this invisible enemy is going to give us hell in this war. War is hell. But we have the victory through Christ. All right. So I want brothers and sisters to understand this when dealing with the invisible enemy. All right. Knowing who the invisible enemy is, knowing that we have power over this invisible enemy. Right. A lot of that power comes through identifying what's real versus what's fake. Let me get one more scripture here. All right, so wasn't able to find the exact scripture I'm looking for here, but the scriptures I just went through, just wanted brothers and sisters to understand the power we have in all of this invisible war. That this is an invisible war. You can't fight an invisible war with carnal weapons. All right, our weaponry is the full armor of God. Our righteousness, the truth, the peace, the faith. All right, those are our weapons. That's how we fight this war. Okay, anything outside of that, away from that, you're fighting a war you'll never win. Not against this enemy. Okay, so that's the real invisible boogeyman outside of what they would want us to believe the invisible boogeyman is. And so with that, that's the conclusion of tonight's broadcast. I'll look through the chat for a few minutes since I haven't done that in a while. Since I haven't been able to take the phone calls, if there's any questions, I'll be happy to look at any questions that people may have before we conclude tonight's broadcast. Any questions before we conclude? Someone asked if we have a 5th generational phone, should we get rid of it? That's a tough question. I would just I'm not trying to have one myself. I'm going to try to hold on to the technology that exists before that as long as I can before getting that. No telling what those devices are going to do, along with the frequency coming from those devices to those towers. Prevailing Herb says, I'm going to send you a nice herbal package to keep your health up in these times. I appreciate that. You can send an email to GOCC Southwest at gmail.com and I'll get back with you on that as far as the details. And yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because I'm looking to do a broadcast on health and herbs soon. Very important to be healthy in these times with what they're doing to try to make us sick, even as far as being in proximity to those who drunk the juice and catching whatever they got. The stronger your immune system, the better chance you have to fight off whatever they're dealing with. And should you get ill, you can overcome it quicker with less of a battle. Someone asked, will we be on next week or every other week? Right now it's going to be every other week, being that time is short and just right now the time isn't there for me to be able to dedicate as much into bringing forth the broadcast as I would like. So every other week I'm going to try to do a broadcast. 4G phones, I mean, really, you know, all the invisible frequencies are bad, but 4G is definitely better than 5G. So, you know, eventually we're going to have to step away from this technology altogether for our health's sake. Somebody asked about the infrastructure and human infrastructure. Let me go up and see if I can see your question. I think it's Tammy. If not, you may need to say it again, because I don't, only lets me scroll up so far before it cuts off, so I wasn't able to scroll up and see your question, Tammy. You have to ask it again. What's the best way to use our savings to keep the powers that be, to keep them from getting their hands on it? Well, you know, you want to have some liquid assets like cash, because you never know when you might need it for something. But if you're going to use it and turn it into something, it'd be something tangible, something that's actually physical. Okay, so putting your money into physical things, definitely a few months worth of food, storable, long-term storable food, survival items, health items, herbal, you know, keeping herbals on in your herbal cabinet, so you can stay healthy. Water, if it's water filtration systems, there's some really cheap ones out there, gravity systems, stuff like that. That's really stuff that is going to be needed for survival. Bug out stuff. Someone says they're living in Taiwan, but they're from Houston. Well, I'm a regional elder over Houston. You can send an email to GOCC Southwest at gmail.com, Amanda. I don't think we have anybody in Taiwan though, but not sure how long you're going to be there. But we do have a church in Houston. Someone says that there's a FEMA alert August 11th nationwide. Would this be a trigger across the U.S.? September 11th will be the 20th year anniversary. Yeah, I mean, every time around September 11th, you get Feast of Trumpets. That's always the time for false flag season, trumpet being blown. You know, FEMA alert nationwide. You know, those are things to keep your eye on. Nothing to, you know, get panic or go crazy about, but definitely keep your eye on those particular events and times. Someone asked, what email can I send news to me? GOCC Southwest at gmail.com. Somebody says, what's the best herb to take for nerve issues? I think Elder said he's going to have Truman Burst on soon. So I would definitely get with Truman Burst on that. Since he is an herbalist. I think there's some herbs like passion flower and there's another one. I'm trying to remember. That has some really good calming effects for nerves. But yeah, give a Truman Burst. Always do your research on these things. Maybe check with your local doctor before you take any type of herb. Well, I was being facetious, Johnny, when I said the ex-hacker is working for the good government. I was just saying, he turned from being the bad guy to the good guy. It's so much psychological deception within those particular type of stories. So it's like you have to really just laugh at a lot of that stuff that they put out in those 60 Minutes and other news sources. I am Daniel. What herbs should we keep? To me, the best herbs are those that are most nutrient dense. I would say, herbs like sea moss and bladderwrack have a lot of nutrients and minerals in them. High iron herbs that are high in iron. So that's what I would look at. Look at the herbs that have the most nutrients in them, which are going to be a lot of stuff coming out of the sea, since the land that we have now is so over-tilled, over-processed. There's not a lot of minerals in the earth, so there's not going to be a lot of minerals in your herbs, and herbs that are high in iron. So Tammy says that the OHW is trying to get past the infrastructure and human infrastructure bill. I'll have to look into that bill. I'm not sure exactly what that bill is, but I kind of have an idea what it probably is. Someone asked, will the satellite phones work when the grid goes down? That's a good question. I mean, we'll see. We'll see what works, what happens, how it all goes down. Someone says they heard that 5G is going full speed August 11th. I don't know, but hey, I wouldn't doubt it with them forcing people to take free phones. I mean, it's like you don't have a choice. We're going to give you this free phone whether you like it or not. You can't say no to free these days. So, yeah, chamomile is good for nerves. Lavender. What are some good items to put in a small bug out bag? I would say the first thing that you would want to get is something that's going to filter water. They have like $20, $25. If you go, I think I have it uploaded on the GOCC Southwest. Let me check. We did a bug out bag broadcast, and yeah, bugging out off-grid preparation and staying healthy in these times. If you go to that video,
tonight
we talk about a lot of those things that could go in a bug-out bag or EDC bag, everyday care bag. But definitely they have, I forget the one I have. It's a water filtration that filters like 10,000 gallons of water or something. Something that's going to filter water, because water is going to be the most important thing in these times. So you're definitely going to want something for water. You're gonna want some type of cutting tool that you can cut with, like maybe like a small axe or knife for like hunting or protection. I was trying to think of everything on my back. Something for light, like a flashlight. They have the solar lights. They have the crank lights. Something that for light so you can see. Something that you can start fires with. They have the different type of kits, the different things that you can use for starting fires. I would start there, but I mean, there's so much things. But you go and check out the broadcast we did on bugging out, and we talked about a lot of stuff. So I'm pretty sure you'll get the most important things out of that broadcast. But will ham radios be detectable? I mean, when you talk about a chaos situation when stuff hits the fan, I think ham radios and satellite radios, those things will kind of be under the radar type of things that they really won't be too much focused in on, because most people won't have them. Maybe not in the beginning at least, but they'll more so be focused on people who are on grid with cell phones. Someone asked, what's the best metal detox? The best metal detox is going to be like anything that has chlorophyll in it. Your green, leafy vegetables, like your kales, your cilantros, parsley. I mean, you got spirulina, you got your chlorella. Those things are going to attach to heavy metals and pull them out of your body. You have activated charcoal, you have bentonite clay, diatomaceous earth. A lot of those things will pull heavy metals out of your body. But lots of vegetables, lots of vegetable juice will green, chlorophyll will pull that stuff out of your body. Yeah, Sawyer water filter, I think, is the one. Definitely the Bible. You definitely want to have a Bible in your bug out bag. Get you the small one. I got the one, I think it's the Cambridge with the Apocrypha in it, real small Bible. Book of Eli, right? Yeah, sarsaparilla, definitely a top herb. I would definitely say one of the best herbs. If anyone you can have, that's definitely a top on my list. An iron-rich herb. So it's 11 p.m. my time, and it's been great. It's been a blessing to be able to be here with you brothers and sisters, and build, share information, fellowship, and hopefully I was able to answer some of y'all's questions and give some edification with that, as well as with tonight's broadcast. And so, once again, we understand the times we're in, the fact of who the real enemy is, and that we have the power to fight that enemy, but we only can fight it through our righteousness. So if you're in sin, that's kryptonite to a saint, right? You're not fighting anyone in sin. So leave off from your sins, you get a chance tonight, I'll give y'all some homework. Go and read the whole chapter, 2nd Esdras, chapter 16. Read that whole chapter. And it's a lot of meat in there. You can just meditate on that and just keep going over those scriptures. I mean, you could probably do, 4 or 5 lessons easy of 2nd Esdras chapter 16 alone. It's so much in that, but so much good stuff in there. Talks about, who's involved, what's happening in the earth, what we are to do, how do we survive, the people that ain't going to make it, the people that are going to die in righteousness. I mean, there's so much good stuff in there. So I'll leave you all with that, 2nd Esdras 16. Be y'all's homework. Check that out. And if it be the Most High's will, we will be back in another 2 weeks for another episode of Friday Night Sabbath, coming out of Babylon. Until then, you brothers and sisters, stay blessed. Seek Zion. And know that time is short. All right, but we get the kingdom next. So let's work for it. The kingdom of heaven is within us. Let's get it. Shabbat Shalom. Bless y'all.